to the Cardamom Chai with Roma and Jasnoor. I'm Jasnoor.
Hi, I'm Roma. Thanks for joining us on this week's episode on the topic of how to say no, or sort of just around that topic somewhere where we can discuss saying no part. But first, how was your week, Jasnoor?
My week was good. It wasn't too crazy, getting back into the swing of things at work, and actually had a work party last night. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Usually, so being an introvert, I don't like going to a lot of parties, and work parties are like you're just forced to socialize with your coworkers. But actually, like, I had a lot of fun, and I've made some really good friends at work. It was really fun hanging out with them. My husband went along with me this time, and he had a lot of fun as well. And we actually got to stay the night at the hotel where the party was at. This was the first night that I spent away from my son since he's been born. And I had a lot of nerves going into it, but it actually turned out just fine. Nothing crazy happened. He was good and happy, and when we came back this morning, he was really happy to see us. Yeah, so it turned out really well.
But what kind of party was it? It's January, so cannot be Christmas related party. So
It was a Christmas party. We
Really?
have our Christmas parties in January, and the reason for that is everyone can make it in January, and because a lot of people are off in December and they can't come to all of these work events. It's to do with that, and I honestly like it that it's in January because there's a lot less going on. No one's having to juggle so many things at once, and then January doesn't seem so boring either.
That is because it makes sense. That's a nice gesture by your company, because it makes sense to have it in January, because everyone would be back, everyone would be fresh, and it's a great way. Party is a great way to start the year as well, right? So makes sense.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, exactly. It was awesome, and my coworkers are great as well, and getting to see their significant others is really, really fun, because you're like, oh, so this is your partner that you talk about.
You always talk about, yeah.
Exactly. So it's nice getting to meet all of them. But how was your week, Roma?
My week was good, but not as fun as yours. But it was slow, because it was technically the first week of back to work, even though last week we had a few days of work, but this week was really when everyone started coming back to work. So it was still slow. Work-wise, I talked with a few people and wished them Happy New Year, and just talked about their holidays and just catching up and stuff. Plus, at the same time, planning out the month in terms of work and everything. And at home, it was nice and relaxing, not much happening in the evenings, just a few hours of just relaxation and being ready for the next day of work.
Nice.
And everything. So pretty good.
And the weather's been really cooperative as well, so it's a nice change.
Yeah, it has been really nice. It rained the other day.
I know, which is weird for January to rain.
Though last year, December 31st, on New Year Eve, it was raining, because I remember I drove my mother-in-law and my brother-in-law. All three of us went to see the fireworks downtown.
Oh, yeah?
And it was raining. And I was worried while we were driving. I'm like, how are they going to do the fireworks if it's raining this bad? And they were just doing it fine. But it wasn't obviously like pouring down really bad. There were sprinklers of water. So it rained last year as well. Although last year was an exception, if you remember. Like, it hadn't snowed until like January, February, right?
Yeah.
The whole Christmas time was all like without snow and all. But this year, at least it's been snowing. But this week we had rain, which is sure, not complaining. But then the night became so icy. I couldn't walk outside.
It's just strange to see rain in January. Rains are not the norm in Calgary.
Yeah, it's more of a April-May thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Not January thing.
It should be snow, not rain.
Anyways, let's get into today's topic. I'll
Yeah,
explain.
let's do it.
Okay, so who has a hard time saying no to things? Yeah, I know, me too. I think it's I think it's probably in our psyche to just, agree to everything and want to show others that we are there for them. So today we're gonna be diving into the art of saying no, something we all struggle with but need to master. Whether it's dodging that extra work project or, setting boundaries with people, let's talk about it today. There's that famous saying that time is money. So, whether you want to spend that time on your family or for your workouts or, fold laundry or, just to simply just sit and ponder. It should really be your choice. However, even then, it gets difficult to say no to others when needed, even though you should be using this time for yourself. And like everyone's got the same number of hours in a day. We all sell our time to make a living, usually, when we work for other people or work as an employees. Yet, asking for someone's time is a very common gesture that people do. And another common factor is not being able to say no. So, for the sake of this podcast, what we're going to do is Jasnoor will be on the side of arguing how to say no and why to say no, as she's better at it than I am. And then I'll be on the other side where I'll be arguing, asking questions and putting my concerns forward. So we'll just have a nice discussion on it. So yeah, let's jump into it and let's try to make no your favorite word.
Well said, Roma. And I know that it's so difficult for people to say no. For some people, it's actually very difficult to say yes to things. So I know we're talking about one side of the coin here, the word no, but there is that side as well of people having a hard time saying yes to things. But we'll cover that in the future. Today is all about no.
Yes. Okay. So, just to start this off, what are your thoughts on the power of saying no? Like, what do you want to say about it to just lay out the grounds for our podcast?
I think when I think about the word no and in the instance that we use it in, it really prioritizes the fact that you are valuing yourself and your needs ahead of anyone else. Whether it be your time, as Roma mentioned, whether it be your mental health, whether it just be because that's what you would like to do. I think that there's immense power in the fact that you have the choice to say no and really protect yourself from what you do not want to happen. I know saying no can be very harsh and can come across as, you putting up walls from other people. But at the end of the day, my thoughts on it are you living the life for other people or are you living the life for you? I know that's a very selfish way of thinking and it doesn't really get us the results. But in this aspect, I really urge you to think about the fact that you're living for yourself. And if the answer is saying no to something, I would say why not? Why not do that? But if you're living for yourself and the answer is yes, I think there's a power in that as well, right? And you could be like, yes, this is something that I want to do. And
right, it shows sort of like you feeling warm and love towards that person, that you are willing to spend your time and say yes.
Exactly. To be able to say no can also be beneficial to other people too, right? If someone is asking you to do something for them, that might not be the best thing for them in the long run, and it might not be the best thing maybe just for you or your relationship. It might help them in the future. I've always found like some people, like my brother will always ask me to do something for him and I'd be like, no, I am not doing this for you. I can teach you and I can show you how to do it, but I will not do it for you. The power in that is I'm teaching him to be independent and not rely on me to do something for him. On the other hand, I'm saying no because I don't want to spend time doing things for him all the time. Like I'm not just sitting here to do everything for him and hold his hand through everything. So I'm saving my time and being selfish in that way, but I'm also giving him the independence so he can do it himself.
I like the way you're thinking in this case, because you're saying that even though it sounds selfish, eventually it will be helpful to the other person, because it's almost like you are teaching them how to make a sandwich rather than making a sandwich for them. That's a whole thing as well about like helping people, I think. So okay, I see what you're saying, because that sounds more morally okay to say no.
Yeah, It's like that saying, you teach a man how to fish rather than giving him the fish. If you give him the fish, he'll survive for a day. If you teach him how to fish, he'll survive for his life.
See, we're starting off at a very powerful note already. I like
Yeah.
this. But so when you normally say no to people, I know you already mentioned that it may be difficult and all, but like, how is it like just worse? You just say that no, like I can't. Isn't it like sort of creating a feeling of like guilt, or like, you know, when you would be saying no and you look at their facial expressions and then you change your answer halfway because you feel bad.
No, usually if someone's pretty close to me, I don't have any problem saying no, because at that point they know my personality, and honestly they would really gauge before asking me to do something, because of the fact that if it's easy and if they can do it themselves, I will usually say no, because I value my own time. To the people close to me, it is easy to say no, and I'll give them a reason for it. It's not like I'll just be like, no, I'm not doing it. I'll give them a reason. I will also tell them I'm here if you have any questions, or if you need me to look over something. If you need me to, let's say like someone is making a resume, they just ask me, hey, can you do my resume for me? My answer would be no, I will not make your resume for you, but how about you draft something and I can look it over and tell you what's good and what's not good. And that puts the responsibility on them to do something for themselves. I want to kind of get away from this example, because I think this is a very justified way of saying it, because it has a very powerful reasoning. When it comes to like social gatherings, let's say someone's invited me to a party and I don't want to go, I will say no. And there's no good reason for saying no here, except for the fact that I do not want to go to a party because it's not fun for me. And in those instances, when someone's invited me to something and I'm saying no, I'll tell them, hey, I have other obligations, if I actually do have other obligations. And if I don't actually want to go, I will tell them, no, I can't make it this time. And I usually will not give a reason for it, because I will only say no if I'm not close to you. So let's say like an acquaintance has invited me to a party, and then I'd be like, no, thank you, I can't make it that day. And that's it. Leave it there. But if it's a close friend, let's say you've invited me to something and I can't make it because there's a conflict, and if there's other things that are coming up, whoever else is there that I don't want to be interacting with, I will tell you, because I'm close enough to you that you know I can give you an explanation and you would understand the explanation. But if it's someone that's not close to me, I don't feel like I don't owe them an explanation, because they're not a close friend or family. But I do find it hard to say no at that point, because someone has kindly invited me to something, and I do find it hard in those cases. But then I think about the fact that when it comes close to that event, I'm going to be dreading it when I go, because that has happened to me before. I go to something that I'm invited to and I don't want to go, and I still end up going. I hate the event. I dread it. I don't have fun, and I leave early.
Oh, God. But then if it's so, then is that people that you are still sort of friends with or in relationship with, not in relationship, but like, you know, family wise you're connected or something like that, and they're distant, maybe relatives or distant family friends or whatever, like, do you not have fear of rejection in terms of like, oh, they might, you know, break the relationship, or they might want to walk away, or that you'd be losing a friend, or I don't know, do you have that, or are you just, you know, you feel like it's okay? Because I know that would be like one of the things that people feel, right? Like that's one of the fears that people have when they try to say no, because they don't want to lose this friend or lose this friendship, or even if it's a family friend that might turn into like a good friendship or something, they don't want to feel like they're breaking it or something.
No, that's a very valid point, and I'm gonna be really, really vulnerable now. I did have that fear because I'm not the greatest at making friends, as you guys would have heard in the Making Friends in Your 30s episode. And you know, I found myself comparing to others who had a ton of friends, a very active social life, and I would be jealous of that and be like, why don't I have that? I don't have like a ton of friends. And then years and years of just being so worried about not having a ton of friends, and you know, I would still say no to things at that point because I think that's just been my nature, but I I would say yes because of wanting to feel like I want to be friends with more people. I want to have more social interactions. So then I would say yes and I would go, and it's not authentic. And then eventually, slowly, I realized that, you know what? The people that I want in my life are already there in my life, and other people that are actually people that I would want to hang out with, they naturally gravitate towards you because of your same values and beliefs. So you're not going to find them at social interactions that you're saying no to. You're not going to find those people that way because those people wouldn't be there in the same capacity. I think I've let that go. And if someone says, oh, you don't have a lot of friends or you're a loner, it doesn't affect me anymore because I'm like, so what? That's my choice that I'm a loner. I have a few close friends that I talk to, not regularly, but on a basis that works for me and that works for the friendship. And I have a great partner that I rely on, and I have family that I'm surrounded with that I want to hang out with. So I've stopped worrying about the rejection piece of it. If they reject me because of the fact that I'm valuing my mental health and my personal time, then whatever they have going on, if they're a good friend, they're not going to reject me for saying no. But if they're just an acquaintance, they might reject me. It's a very real possibility that they will reject me. But did I want that friendship to begin with? Probably not.
That sounds a lot like the conversation we had about friendship, like the having boundaries in friendship as well, right? I mean, this is I think this is an extension of the boundaries topic, I guess, in a way. But on the topic of being lonely or feeling like a loner, what do you think, this is just out of curiosity, what do you think about going to a cafe by yourself and just sipping on coffee and like by yourself and just being there by yourself?
I love it.
Right? There's nothing wrong with it. I've always like I haven't ever minded that, but I've heard from other people that they don't really like going to cafes by themselves and everything just because they don't want to feel judged for being alone or something like that. But
I honestly love it. Like, I'll take a book with me and I'll read, and I'll spend the afternoon sipping a coffee and reading a book. That sounds so good to me. And if, let's say, a friend or my husband wanted to come with me and they wanted to just read a book sitting side by side and not talking, great, even better.
Even better.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. Going back to the previous answer of yours about, how you gave an example of the resumes. While you were saying that, it made me think about the time when we were in university and I used to suck at my accounting and I would have so many questions and all, and I would ask you and you would literally go. So it would just be like Jasnoor, myself, and a third friend of ours, and we all three would be in a classroom and it would be an empty classroom. Jasnoor would pretend to be a professor. Literally, it wasn't even like pretending, it actually felt like it, because she would go up to the blackboard and pick up the chalk and just start writing things on the blackboard and start explaining things to us on the blackboard and everything. And so she really just had that to begin with, that I don't really mind spending time teaching you or like answering your questions if you had questions to make it better for you. So I don't know, I just want to I felt like sharing that because it reminded me of that.
I still do that with my employees whenever they have question, and I have a whiteboard in my office, and whenever they have question, I pick up a marker and I start writing things and explaining how this works, because I think I'm better at writing it down and explaining how things flow. But I still do that, and I remember that. I think that helped me a lot too, because it helped me to really solidify my knowledge, because I think the best way, so when you're learning something, the first step is learning, the second step is doing, and then the third step is teaching to really grasp something. So I think it really helped me a lot as well.
I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, so say you said no to someone a few times, but they still constantly try to persuade you or try to convince you to change your mind. Do you face situations like that where your first few times of saying no hasn't really hit, and then what do you do in a situation like that?
I mean, if it's something, let's say if it's a friend that wanting to connect a lot, I'll realize the effort there that they're putting in, and I'll actually start to give them a lot more importance as well, because I'll recognize the effort of wanting to connect, and I will start making the same effort. That takes a lot of guts to make those effort, right? But if it's someone just like pestering me to do something for them, and I've said no many times, I stop talking to them. Be like, unless you realize on your no that no is a complete sentence, we can't do anything until you realize that together. Because I don't mind teaching, and as I've said, but if they're not realizing that, if they're like, I don't want to be taught here, I just want you to do, let's say, my taxes for me, and I'd be like, no, like I might do it once, but I'm not doing it every single year. I do my parents' taxes and I do my taxes, and then I used to do my brother's and my cousin's taxes as well. Once my brother got old enough, I taught him how to do his own taxes, so then he just took over his own. I still do my parents because my parents will not learn, and I can't. You know, you have different things for your parents. Let's just say that. But with my cousin, I did it for a couple of years, and then he got married, and then he did ask me to do his tax return with his wife as well. And his wife is actually doing her CPA as well. So what I did was, the first time I did their taxes, I sat her down with me and I taught her how to do it. This is how you do it. And then I told her, you can do it from now on yourself. So then they wouldn't ask me again. Plus their privacy would be saved as well, because I know people are private about their finances, and I'm sure they don't want me knowing their business all the time about how much money they make, and it works out for them. And so I've done that. If he had still insisted that you keep doing my taxes every single year, I would have plainly said, I don't feel comfortable doing your taxes every year. It's pretty easy for me to do them, but do you really want your privacy kind of leaked? Because these tax returns are saved on my parents' computer. They can open them up whenever they want. And obviously I don't have any secrets from my parents, but it's my cousin, and obviously he'd want to keep that separate from his aunt and uncle, his cousin, you know, those would have been real repercussions, and I would have told him that. But luckily, his wife took the hint, learned, and then they ask me questions every year, if they have any, about how to do the taxes and stuff. Now she's doing her CPA, so I'm sure she knows a lot more. They don't even have questions anymore. And if it's something that I have no control over, like if I can't do it, I can't do it. It is what it is, and just say no. And if they're not respecting that, I'm just gonna stop answering your phone calls.
Okay, so basically you're saying that in saying no, there's always benefits of the other party as well, and if they can see that, or if you can explain that to them properly, then there are chances that your no would be taken positively, and they would probably see their benefit in it as well, and they would just go with that and not try to ask you to change your mind over and over again.
Yeah, and you know, I do get perceived as selfish because I say no. My husband, so he's a very social guy. He's always wanting to invite people over, like family or friends or extended family, or go over to people's places. I'm saying no to so many of these things because I don't have enough time in the day to be hosting people all the time, or to be going over to someone's house all the time. So in the beginning, we really disagreed with each other on that I would say no, and then he would be like, you always say no to going to someone's house. We've come to sort of an agreement, is if it's important, then he will say yes and we will go. Obviously we'll discuss, but if it is not important, then he will not keep saying yes, because it's just a lot of effort for me to be going to someone's house all the time, especially with our kid in tow. And we got invited to a birthday party once. It was a Thursday, and I had work the next day.
A birthday party on a Thursday?
Yeah, and we got
a challenge here.
And we got invited the day of, or even like the day prior. So we got invited on a Wednesday. I think they had like just a last minute thing that they organized. And like, first of all, 1 day notice, if that, and a weeknight. And then I said, I can't go to that. And he's like, I've already said yes. And I was like, I'm not going. I'm not going to this. I don't care if you have said yes. I am not going. I was also heavily pregnant at that time. And then he's like, you know, like, I've already said, what am I going to say to them now? I don't care. This is not okay with me. I don't want to go. So eventually he went by himself, and he just told them that I was not feeling well. But we've had to put in some boundaries here. I need at least a week's notice, and it cannot be a weekday. If it's a weekday, we'll discuss it before he says yes to something.
Hmm.
So those are the two requirements. It has been working so far, but that's the biggest thing I find when I'm saying no to things is whoever else is involved in that. My husband is most typically involved in that, of me saying no and him being, oh no, I don't want to say no to this. Or my parents, and when they have planned something and invited other people or something like that, and I say no, and then they get really hurt about me saying no. So that's where I struggle with, actually.
You know what my theory is behind that is that saying yes and then sticking to it shows commit, because I have a sort of a nature like that. Like if I have said yes 99.99%, I'm there. Like I'm doing it no matter what happens. My father is also similar. If he said yes, he has to do it.
Yeah.
So I think people connect saying yes to commitment, right? Like it's a verbal commitment, it's a verbal promise. So then when you go like, okay, well, I said yes to this person, now they'd be counting us in to prepare for dinner and all these other things, and so now if we don't show up, it shows that we're not committed towards them. I think that's what it may be, but I think your arguments are also valid, because I see, like, I used to be like that, where I would be like, well, I've said yes, so now I have to do it. But now I just go like, no, things change last minute. Like it's okay to say no last minute, as long as you can provide some sort of a justification on it. Although there's a whole different thing on it. I don't know where I read this, but yeah, like if you say no last minute, you may come across as a jerk. But I think this is a whole different topic I'm rambling about here, because we are talking.
No, I totally agree with you, because I have the same thing. If I say yes, that is a yes. That is not a no. And if I say no, that is a no. So I am pretty good at sticking to that. If it's a yes, then it is a yes, and I will be there. Whatever happens, it only changes if there's something drastic that happens. But if it's a no, it's also a no. So, in the cases of my parents or my husband saying yes, it's their commitment that they said yes to. They said yes on my behalf when I didn't say they could say yes on my behalf, right? Totally valid point, and I'm actually with you there. It's like when I say yes, that is 100% yes.
It's
that's
a
not
yes.
something that I'm going back on.
I mean, it is true to be drawing those boundaries as well, that okay, you know what, if it has to be yes, then it has to be in advance, and cannot be a weekday, because of where we live and we have work pretty much every day, and
exactly
we can't, like, it's just not practically possible. But then, okay, so have you ever had a moment where you would get like multiple things to do, or multiple people coming to you, or multiple requests, I guess? How do you say no to that, like if there is more than one request coming to you?
Usually the first one is what holds. If I've said yes to the first thing, then I will say no to everything else that comes, even if I want to do the second thing more. And you brought up a really good point previously, is a yes is a yes. And if I've said yes, I'm not going to say no just because something better came along. So I'm going to say no to whatever came along next, and I'd be like, well, we could do it at another time. If it's let's say like a birthday party, they're inviting me to be like, sorry, I can't make it because I was invited to something else. Or let's say I have a really important meeting or something, and someone's invited me to something else. I'm like, sorry, I cannot. I have a meeting at this point that someone else has freed up their time to do this with, and I'm not going to say yes. But circumstances, like sometimes you do have to be flexible. And, if the second thing is actually really urgent or necessary, I will go back to the first person and see if they can move things around. But if they can't, then that's what it is, because it's all about your word as well. Like, how good is your word?
Right.
Like, if you said yes, are you gonna be backing out of things all the time? It doesn't seem nice and respectful.
No, I get that. Okay, and then I know you mentioned that you don't really feel the need to explain yourself. Like, your close people know you. Right, so that's not needed. But then even for like people who are not so close, you feel like you don't really need to explain yourself once you say no. But is there anything else you do to sort of get your point across to people, or do you just think like, no, it's not even needed, like I said no and that should be enough?
Usually if my no is taken well, I will explain a little bit further. If the other person's like, okay, I get it and stuff like that, then I will explain myself. But if the other person's being feeling negative about it. And then I'm like, okay, great, I said no. Because if that's the type of person you are, I don't really need to be having any more interactions here. So it's really about the kind of answer I get back from my no, right? Because I know it's the decent thing to do is, explain something to someone. It is in our human nature to make everyone around us happy. So if it's a nice person, I will explain it to them. And then, then we'll come up with another thing that can happen or some sort of agreement in the future. But if it's someone who's going to take it badly and be like, oh no, you're so selfish, you can't do this for me, or you can't make time for me, it was all worth it to say no to you.
Okay, that makes sense. What do you do when people are disappointed because you said no? I think you sort of touched upon this. That,
Yeah.
If they're disappointed, then
Usually the disappointment is very clear in the way they react to the no. And some people will try to manipulate you with their disappointment.
That's the worst one.
Yeah, called emotional blackmail.
Yes.
And when that happens, when the emotional blackmail piece happens, I kind of just walk away from it. Otherwise, I will get angry if there is emotional blackmail involved. But if people are actually genuinely disappointed and you can see that, I don't think there's a lot of times that I've reverted to a yes. I've only reverted to a yes when my parents or my husband have said yes on my behalf and I'm saying no. Those are the only instances where I've reverted to saying a yes, because at that point I'm disappointing someone that is really close to me and they weren't the person that I'm saying no to. So I'm kind of making them look bad in someone else's eyes and making them not honor their commitment. So that's where that comes along, is I will always honor my commitments, and so me saying no is making them not honor their own commitments. Does kind of feel I'm being a very shitty person. So that's when I will change my answer to yes, because I wasn't directly involved, and by me saying no, I'm not hurting the person that the request came from. I'm actually hurting someone close to me that had faith in me to say yes. So it's a different kind of disappointment, but it does feel like the same thing. That I'm saying no to them. So that's what happens. But if it's a direct no and someone is disappointed, I'll explain it to them, and if they're still disappointed, it is what it is. Most likely do not say yes.
Yeah, that makes sense, to honor, your closed ones' commitment towards, other people. So that I understand.
Yeah, and it's a very crappy situation, because my husband knows I don't want to be there, but he's also grateful that I'm making the effort of being there,
right,
and realizes that I'm doing this for him. I'm not doing this for the third party involved. So, and then you get to keep those brownie points and use them on a later date.
Exactly. That's the fun side of it.
Yeah.
But what about the fear of missing out? Do you have that? Like, do you give any importance to that at all when you are saying no? Do you ever go like, oh man, I'll be like missing out from this?
I used to think that way. I used to be really like, I want to go to this, or I want to be involved in all of this stuff with other people. I want to have a lot of experiences and stuff like that. So I used to be like that. There was a lot of fear around that, and it made me say yes to a lot of situations that I wouldn't say yes to. And I didn't feel good afterwards. And I didn't feel like I got anything out of it that I was hoping to get out of it. Some experiences, they were positive and I did get something good out of it, but not most of them. So I now, like, sometimes that feeling does come back, like, oh, like I'm going to miss out on this really fun time. For example, my cousin, she got married in Mexico. They invited us to the wedding, a destination wedding to Mexico, and we said no because at the time, we had other priorities in mind. We could afford it. We could afford to go. We could take the time off. No big deal. But we had other priorities that we were working towards. We had to say no. And at that point, like, I felt like, yeah, I did miss out on that really fun time. It looked like they had a really, really nice time. I wanted to be there for her wedding as well. But thinking back on it, I really felt that. But now it was fine that I didn't go. Because if I did go, I would have spent all of this money and time going to this event, which would have been fun for a week.
Right.
But after that, like, we wouldn't be able to focus on our priorities that we had set out. And we wouldn't be in a position that we're at today. Would be look a little different, not a hugely different, but it would look a little different. So I'm glad we didn't, and we did not make that decision. So yes, there's a lot of things that I've missed out on because I've said no. But I've also kept my priorities in mind, and I've progressed on those priorities. So it helps to remember what the priorities are, to not have that feeling of like, I'm missing out on so many things. But then, because then you have to evaluate all the things that you were able to do instead. So let's say you didn't go to a party, but you were able to relax at home, watch a movie or read a book, and, you know, spend some quality time with your partner and just have fun at home. And then you have to realize, like, those are actually really important experiences as well, even though they might feel boring. And that's a priority of mine. My priority is spending time with my husband, spending time with my son, and, you know, being able to read. Like, I love reading and just being surrounded by the people I love. So in those moments, it's helpful to realize that those priorities that are your priorities, that why you're saying no to, those are important as well.
You know what? I was gonna say that I like being at this age as well because of this whole thing about having our own goals and priorities. So, like, FOMO is such an old word for us now. That we don't give a shit about the whole missing out part anymore. Like, like when I was in university, I had the same thing. Like, I would attend like parties and stuff from university that they used to take place, just because, you know, you would have the fear of missing out. You want to be a part of it and all that. But, you know, as you grow older, you really start evaluating where you're spending your time and money and efforts and energy and all these things, and you just go like, you know what, it's okay if I don't attend this party. It will just like be so much beneficial to me. I agree with you on this one point, is that fear of missing out is such an ancient term for us now.
And have you realized, as the older someone gets, you know how aunties and uncles, they just say whatever that's on their mind, and they don't give a shit about what you think or your feelings. I think that comes with experience, and be like, I don't care what happens. They're just living their life as they want to live it, and they do not care about anyone else. I feel like I have that mentality some of the time, not all of the time, and I got here way quicker than most people do.
Yeah, because like I would watch these Instagram reels that would come up, and it would be people in their like 40s or 50s or something, and when they would be asked, you know, what's good thing about being at this age and all. And, you know, few people would say that I don't have to think about what other people think anymore. That's just it. It's not a priority anymore for me to impress others or even think about what others are gonna, what opinions they're gonna form about me. So I think that's a good perk of being a bit more older or more experienced or aging.
You know, I was talking to my husband about this, and like, we care about a lot about what other people think of us, how we're perceived and everything, but are we living our life with them? We're living our life for ourselves. We're living with our partners. So why don't we make our partners happy, and why don't we make ourselves happy instead of worrying about what other people think and how they might perceive us?
Right. Yeah. And self-care and everything, these things are so big these days, and I'm so glad that humans have evolved to a point where they are understanding the importance of self-care and, you know, spending time for yourself or with your loved ones and everything, which I don't think was really a thing back then. Anyway, at least when we were in university, that wasn't a thing at all. It was actually frowned upon when you would say no to someone, or say no even if like you don't have anything to do, and you would say no. It was really just frowned upon. And that actually also reminds me of a scene from Gilmore Gilmore Girls. If you remember, there was this one episode where I think Lorelai was out with her mother to a spa or something for the night, and she had left Rory home by herself, and Rory ended up saying no to Dean for hanging out, and she ended up saying no to Paris for hanging out just because she's like, I don't have the house by myself. I want to like do laundry and order Indian food and just fold the laundry and just spend time by myself. And they both were offended by it. They both were like, what do you mean, like, spend time by yourself, or you don't want to hang out with me just because you want to do laundry? It was such a thing. Like, and this is like, you know, back in like somewhere between 2000 to 2007, and we were in university, you know, somewhere in like mid 2010s as well. So it was also not a thing back then either. Like, it was really frowned upon when you ended up saying no to someone.
No, that's a really good point. Like, that was not the norm, and Rory was just looked at like a weirdo for prioritizing her alone time.
Yeah. Okay, I guess what else I want to know is
can I ask you a question?
Yeah, go.
Well, can you tell me a time where you had to say no, but it was really hard?
Yes, I have a time. Oh my god, it was so when I left my previous company, I was mentally completely used up at that time. I was physically used up as well, in the sense that I was physically extremely tired of just the dynamic and the environment that was there and everything, plus the fact that I ended up going through a number of surgeries after I left work, you know, that really showed that physically I was completely like used. I was burnt out completely. And the day I gave my resignation, I was asked if I can give 10 extra days to help out with things, and I was mentally so not in my mind, and I was so used up and not focused at all that I couldn't even make a decision about that. I ended up calling my husband and then my parents, and I asked their opinions on, because I am bad at saying no. Like, I don't know, I feel guilty for saying no, especially when someone is asking very nicely. Like, it's just so hard for me to say no, especially at that time. And this is probably like 3 years old scenario, or the situation I'm referring to right now. At that time, it would have been very challenging for me to say no, but I knew that I shouldn't be saying anything right now. So I said that, okay, let me think about it. And I ended up calling my husband and my parents, and all three of them said, say no right now. You don't need to continue here, because it was not a good environment for me at all. It did not work for me. And so they said no to me, and without thinking, like, I said no with so much guilt visible on my face to this person who was asking me. And man, that was hard. It was hard for me to say no at that time. And I could remember, like, it was almost like pleading to sort of let me go, or pleading to like, no, I don't want to spend any more time here, like, don't make me, sort of a thing. Like, that was my facial expressions at that time. And without saying, or without even thinking, I said no, just because the three people I trust the most, you know, family, they told me. It's almost like, you know, it's almost like making a decision for a child, right? You tell them that, okay, you go do this and it will be good for you, and the child is supposed to do it blindly without them knowing the consequences. So that's one thing that pops up in my head about how, like, a situation where I had to say no and how challenging that was for me. But I mean, after that, I went through a bunch of health issues, and you know, when you go through health issues in life, you really start valuing yourself, and you start valuing your life in general. You know, when you go under surgeries multiple times, right? Like, you really start valuing yourself, because as you are putting under the anesthetic injections and all, you don't know if you're gonna be waking up, right? And you know, having that done multiple times in 1 year, it really makes you value your life a lot more. And now I'm at a much better space. It's still difficult, but I'm getting much better at it. In terms of, if I was feeling guilty 110% of the time at that time, now I feel guilty like maybe 25% of the time.
That's so good.
So it's much better. It's still there, but it's much better. So, you know, and given like when we were in university, I think the reason why we came up with this topic is because we both have like faced things like these when we were in university, where saying no was really a tough thing at that time. As I mentioned, like it was really not a concept back then. And
Yeah.
because of like social media and all, like in recent years, things like these have really popped up. My mom is good at saying no. Like she's like you. She's good at saying
Yeah, my mom will say yes to everything.
no.
No is not in her dictionary.
It's almost like we're opposites of what our mothers have been.
Yeah.
It seems like.
Yeah. I'm the complete opposite of my mom. Complete opposite. I'm just like my dad.
Same thing for me. I'm the same as my father as well.
Yeah.
Not my mom. Although there's so many things I adore about her, and I wish I had them. Like now, both me and my father, we both like admire my mom because we both are so bad at saying no that we actually end up going through so much shit on our own. And it's so much work to be going through so much. Only if you had said no, you could have just said that and move on with your life, and you wouldn't have to go through so much physical trouble afterwards.
Yeah.
Of like getting ready and remembering the time and showing up on time and like going there, socialize, and anyway, just so we admire that now, but previously we didn't really understand why you have to, like, it's so like selfish.
Yeah.
That's how we used to think too.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you want to ask me any other questions? Do you have any other questions?
We could talk about the workplace, saying no in the workplace. I don't think we touched on that. Because, like, this is one thing that I'm not the greatest at.
There's only so many things you can say no to at work anyway, right?
That's true.
How would you say no to things too at work? Especially if it would fall under your responsibility. And most of workplaces are so vague that you don't even know if something falls under your responsibility or not. And then it's sort of just like slipped under to you. And you just go like, okay, I guess now I'm doing this too.
Yeah.
I've seen some people being really good at saying no at work. And I think the thought process behind that is that some people are extremely hardworking and they just want to impress their work people so badly that they would do anything that's given to them in the shortest amount of time possible to sort of show their value to workplaces.
Yeah.
But then there are those type of people who go like, okay, I can only manage this much work in these 8 hours because I also need to spend time, 15 minutes for my coffee break or half an hour for my lunch break or, another 15 minutes during afternoon to just relax for, take a break and things like that. And they would really allocate those times in those 8 hours as well.
Yeah.
And then there would be those other hardworking people in a toxic way, I think, where they would be like, oh, I don't really need a coffee break, or I don't really need to take a mental break right now. Like, I can just go on for like 8 straight hours and squeeze in as much work possible. And then those people are rewarded with giving more work.
Yeah, they are. They are.
So when we talk about like saying no at workplace, I think it's such a fine line on what you can say no to versus what you cannot say no to.
You know what I found is, let's say I get asked to do something that's not my responsibility. I just direct it to the person who it is their responsibility. And I say, this doesn't fall under me. This falls under this person. Have you tried talking to them about it? And then at that point, they can either say yes or no. And then if they come back to me and be like, hey, no, I really want you to do this, I can do it, but I'm not going to be that good at it because I have not done it before. And this is not something that I do on a normal basis. So it'll take me longer. It'll have a lot more mistakes. But if you still want that to happen, I'm also working on these other things that have this deadline. So I might miss those deadlines because I'm focused on doing this new thing to me. Do you want me to continue to do that? And then if they say that, then that's okay. Then I'll be like, okay, I'll do it. And then these other things that I'm working on for someone else or for you, I'm going to have to renegotiate a timeline for it. It's just not possible. So that's how I circumvent those issues, because I don't like taking over other people's jobs if I don't have to. I just want to be doing my own. But if it's truly like a task that I should be doing, then I don't really say no, because I'm like, yeah, I'll see. If I have multiple deadlines and I'm working for multiple things, I'll just be really clear, be like, this is what I have on my plate right now, and this extra task is this is a priority. I'll stop working on these other things and I'll make this a priority, but know that this will be delayed by this much. And if you're okay with that, let's go from here. And if you're not okay with that, let's figure out a solution of if someone else can do it, or if we can push this out. So that's how I've approached it, and been really truly transparent of what the situation is. So if they're like, no, do it, I'm like, okay, well, this is gonna have these consequences, and if you're happy with that, I can do it.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, but I wouldn't be like, I'm gonna attempt this without them knowing, or like, work like a crazy number of hours without them knowing. Like, something might require a lot of overtime, and I'm fine to do that, but I want them to know it first.
Know it. Yeah, and that's fair, right? That's fair. Like, you can't just expect someone to push down everything else that they were working on in order to do, or expect the same quality of work or same deadlines and everything that they already have on their plate.
Exactly.
Makes sense.
And it's worked really well for me, because I've gotten the feedback that I'm really organized, that I make really good priorities, and I'm always making sure that I'm communicating with everyone. So it has actually led to very positive feedback from my superiors, and they appreciate that I'm transparent. So I wouldn't say this would be a negative thing, but at workplace you cannot just say an outright no and expect it to go okay for you.
Yeah, it could be challenging at workplaces.
Yeah, I've been given some tasks that are like really, really not my speciality. And they realize, this is not something that is her focus. And she's not performing well on this thing because it is not her focus. Obviously, those tasks have moved on to someone else who's a better fit for them. And that works out for them and me.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, I think that's it for this topic.
So I guess that's it for this topic for us. And before we end today's episode, we are gonna do our segment on what we are loving this week. So I'll let Jasnoor go first.
Okay. What I'm loving this week is a book series called Dungeon Crawler Carl, mouthful, by Matt Dinniman. It's a very, very fun read. There's 7 books out right now, and I'm on the 5th book, and I just started reading this January 2nd, I want to say.
Bro, how do you get to 5 books in what? It's like 10 days?
Yeah, audiobooks is a good friend of mine. But it is so fun. So the premise is aliens have taken over the Earth because what the aliens do is they go to different planets and they develop it for civilization to occur there. So humans were actually just planted there so that planet develops, and these aliens can mine the planet for minerals. In the process of that, they've told the Earth 50 years ago that they're going to be coming to Earth in 50 years to collect their minerals. And if you give them freely, we'll leave you alone. If you don't, we won't. So Earth didn't provide them any minerals, and what they did was they collapsed every single thing that had a roof into the ground. Everything on the Earth that was like a building, a car, any sort of structure with the roof collapsed into the Earth, and every single person who survived that attack is on the Earth and is given an option to go into the dungeon underneath the Earth's surface and participate in a game.
Fun.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if you don't want to go to the dungeon, you can just stay on the surface and figure out how to survive without everything that you need, right? Because they've wrecked pretty much everything on the surface. So this guy, he is awake. So this happens at 2 a.m. in the morning or something like that. He's awake because his girlfriend's cat has gone out the window as is stuck in a tree. So he steps out in like a t-shirt, a jacket, and boxers, and nothing on his shoes. And he steps out, and then he's like trying to get the cat out of the tree, and everything happens, and then he decides to go into the dungeon, and he goes into the dungeon. He's given instructions about everything, and he receives like a pet biscuit, and he gives the pet biscuit to the cat because it's just him and the cat. The cat turns into an actual player and starts talking.
Bruh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
This is just in the first chapter.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, so this series is the cat and him trying to survive the game. And this game is televised to all of the aliens. And they're like sponsoring players. they're sending them gifts or whatever, and you have to fight all these monsters and level your skills up, and you have to complete quests. So it's like a video game.
Oh.
And it is so fun. And the cat is called Princess Donut. and the guy, his name is Carl. His catchphrase is "God damn it, donut." It's hilarious. Like it's quite serious at points about, trying to survive this game where you literally have to kill all these things, but it is so fun with all of their craziness. So that's why I've gotten through them so quickly, because it's such a light, fun read. And
so another sci-fi,
but more video game focused. I don't
Right.
play a lot of video games. I don't play any video games, but it reminds me of, I used to play this game called RuneScape with my brother when I was in high school, and it reminds me of that. But I'm sure there's better games out there by now that are like close to what it is.
that we don't know.
Yeah, that's my thing for the week. What about you?
So for me, it's not as exciting as your book sounded, but it's wired headphones. I switched to wired headphones from the Bluetooth ones.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stories out there about the Bluetooth ones and how it can affect your head and everything.
Oh my god, really?
Yeah, and I mean, I haven't done deep research about this, but I didn't want to do deep research about it. I had to buy new headphones anyway. So then I ended up buying the wired ones, because that way your phone also stays away from you and it's only connected through a wire, as opposed to the Bluetooth, which is, I think it's also related to radiation and all that. So I mean,
okay.
obviously both headphones have their perks and good things, bad things, and everything. I just chose to go with the wired ones this time. But yeah, I'm sticking to them nowadays. I miss having those from back in the day. You all used to just have wired headphones back in the day, and it worked fine.
Yeah. Which wired headphones are you using?
These are the main Apple ones.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I tried to find wired headphones like a month ago, and all the ones I could find did not connect to my phone. Like, didn't fit in my phone, because I had really old ones that had the round one. The round insert. That's not a port in any phone anymore. But the ones the Apple ones I had that Apple ones. USB-C, maybe? I don't know what it's called anymore. But the old Apple ones before they switched to the most recent one. Yeah. I phone to any sort of wired headphones right now, because I don't have anything like that. Yeah. So yeah, I get it.
Yeah, the one I'm using is USB-C, because that's the only ones that would go in my phone, and these would also go in my laptop now.
Yeah.
So because of my MacBook, it also has the same insert as the phone, so it will work out fine.
Yeah, well, I'm glad that it's all like evening out, that everyone's using now USB-C and Apple's not doing its own thing anymore.
Yeah, sort of.
Well, yeah, the Google Pixel has the same thing as the Apple.
Yeah.
I don't know about the Samsung ones, because I don't have that.
Yeah, I don't have Samsung phone, but the tablet that I got from work, that I think also has a USB-C.
Oh, okay. That's good.
Yeah, so you can charge a Samsung with an Apple.
Okay. That's good, because it's gonna make everyone's lives a lot easier.
Yeah, but you know what's the sad part though?
Yeah.
Now we have the version previous to this. Now we have like 3 or 4 wires.
Oh yeah.
Like those ones sitting with us, and there's just so many wires now for some reason. Like, I don't understand why do companies have to change these things every now and then, or like make us trade in or something, so that we have less of those with us, and then the companies can rework through those to create the new ones or something. What's the point of like just developing creating new wires when, oh man, it's so much waste.
Yeah, the trading in would be great if they would do that, because it would be so much less waste. I know they try to come up with new things to improve like charging and battery life and things like that, but they should really think about the environment and less waste and reuse those. We have like so many of those old wires sitting around that we don't use anymore. And
we had, I think there was like only maybe 3-4 phones that they had in the middle. Only those ones had that wiring, because the phones before then, they all had that round one, the one that goes in a hole in our phones. So it was just like in the short span of time where, companies made all the purchases by new buyers and everything as well.
Yeah.
It's such a waste. Just,
Yeah.
anyways, I think this was our episode. We hope you guys enjoyed it. If you guys have any questions or want to give us any feedback, then feel free to reach out to us at cardamomchaipodcast@gmail.com. And we are also on TikTok now.
Nice.
As our social media platform. So please follow us both on Instagram and TikTok.
And to note, we publish a new episode every single Thursday, so watch out for those in your feed on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and wherever you listen. And we still want to get your questions in so we can answer them on the podcast as well. So please send those in, and we'll start including that at the end of every episode too, once we start getting those in. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and I hope you guys have a great day.
Thank you guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.